Finally, my third argument has to do with what Wilhelm has dealt with very nicely in his presentation. So there is no need for me to repeat what he said very clearly. But let me stress only one point. What is ultimately the main cause of the unethics or unethical behavior in this crisis we are talking about? Now, as he mentioned, using different wording, for centuries, the usual way of doing banking or law was the so-called originate to hold model, which means the following: originate to hold. The banks gives loans to you. I am the bank, I give loans to you, okay? And I have to decide whether or not you deserve, etc. So I originate the risk, but I hold the risk. And if I behave properly, I will get a profit, which is okay. And if you do not pay me back what I have given to you, I take the risk and I lose as a bank. That is the idea of originate to hold. Now, in the last 25 years, and that is the great merit of our colleagues, economists, some of them got the Nobel Prize, and they have a major responsibility. Not personal, because I'm sure that they were modified, but objectively they are responsible, because they did terrible mistakes, because they convinced people, especially the non-economists, that instead of the originate to hold, the model should be originate to distribute. These nowadays are technical expressions everybody uses, which means the banks originate the risk, but the risk should be distributed to whom? To the market, to the investors, to you, to each one of us. That is the idea. Which means that with this system, the risk, which has been originated by the banking system, should be transferred to the market. Now, what was the argument of this economist? That the market is better equipped to price the risk. That is the so-called hypothesis, efficient market hypothesis. Hypothesis, not thesis, because that hypothesis was never been demonstrated. Now, there is no need now to enter into epistemological argument, but it's ridiculous. You see, all this building has been erected on an hypothesis, which was never confirmed. If you ask any philosopher of science, the argument is that you start from hypothesis, then you develop the argument, and you have to confirm. Okay? That is never been good, because it cannot be confirmed, because the markets cannot be efficient. Cannot be efficient. So they said, let us assume that the markets are efficient, financial market. Hence, the markets is capable of pricing CDO, CDS, derivatives, etc. And so we can distribute the risk among a large number. Now, if you take that the risk is exogenously given, R stands for risk, and you, in the denominator, you put the volume of transaction, financial transaction. If you increase T and R is kept constant, it is obvious that in the limit that goes to zero. So that was the famous Black-Scholes-Merton model. And the two of them got the Nobel Prize. They demonstrated, so to speak, that if the risk is exogenously given, and if the volume transaction is increased, it is obvious that even students of elementary school discover that in the limit goes to zero. But where is the mistake? That the risk is not exogenous, it's endogenous. So if you increase T, what happens is that R increases more than in proportion. And so the risk does not go to zero, it increases. So if you distribute the risk from the banks to the investors, which means citizens, people, etc., you transfer to them the risk which has been created by me. I am the bank. Now, why this is unfair, unethical? Because any ethics whatsoever you want to accept says that the risk should be transferred to somebody else only if those receiving the risk are better fitted in sustaining it. Now the opposite has been true, because the risk has been transferred from the bank to ignorant in the sense not knowing, not knowledgeable people who have been cheated in the way. That was it. So this crisis, in this sense, is an ethical failure, in this precise sense. Because you see, any ethical theory would say, any ethical theory, that the risk should be borne by those who are best equipped to manage it. On the other hand, the risk was being transferred to those who are less equipped, to people ignorant and not knowledgeable, blah, 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 etc. So now you have a third case why globalization needs ethical power. And it's ridiculous that even important economists keep on believing that by perfectioning the technicalities you solve the problem. That is impossible. Because when you go to the fundamental cause, you have to make this type of choice. Now, let me, since I have another 5 minutes, let me try to answer the second question.